What's up, everybody, and welcome to Just Because Gaming. My name is Michael.
And my name's Ray.
One of the things that Nintendo came out and said is that the price of Mario Kart, that this Mario Kart, I think it's called Mario Kart World or something like that,
Something like that.
that it's going to be $80 for the digital version and $90 for the physical version. And like the first thing that my stupid brain said is, oh, there's a price difference between physical and digital. And honestly, I'm okay with that because, like, when you think about it, it's like I feel like physical. Normally, prices are always the same, right? But I feel like
Yeah,
for physical copies, it should be a little bit more because they're actually producing stuff. They're
right.
making
There's actually a cost to it.
exactly. Yeah, they're making a cartridge, they're making a box, they're making artwork, they're making all this stuff to physically give you so you can hold it in your hands. And there's been a lot of debate about basically if that's okay in the consumer's eyes, to basically make the physical versions more expensive because, that's on one hand, the consumers say that's unfair. That Nintendo is basically pushing the Nintendo gamers to buy digital versions. And if I don't know if you've seen this, Ray, but one of the things is that there's been a lot of servers that have been shutting down. Like, for example, the Xbox 360 library has shut down, and a lot of those games, if you don't already have them installed, you can't install them. And there have been so many people upset about that because they're saying, I bought these games digitally, and now it's like they don't even exist. And people are really upset about that. And there's a lot of talk about, ownership and how when you buy a game digitally, like you don't actually own it. So yeah, it's really weird to, for Nintendo to be increasing the price of games, especially if it's a digital copy that you don't technically own. Like my initial thoughts about, digital games versus physical games is physical games should still be that $60 price tag, but digital games should be cheaper. Like maybe
Right.
$10 cheaper. Not that everything should be more expensive, but
Right. All of them should go down in price,
they
right?
they should be the same price. I'm saying, keep everything the same price, but just have digital be a little bit on the cheaper end because you're not producing anything physical. You're just giving access to the game. And as many people have pointed out, that access technically is temporary, even if it's long term, like how Xbox 360 games are just now going away, yeah, even if it's long term, still it's not permanent. And
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes sense here if you look at the numbers, because I was kind of looking it up while you were talking about that.
uh,
In 2023, roughly 17% of all console gaming was physical gaming. 83% of it was all digital. So the market has shifted on its own. So the majority of people, a massive majority of people, are playing digital games,
mm,
not physical. Me personally, I didn't get much in trade in for physical games,
yeah,
so there wasn't a lot of resale value to that. And I don't go back and play a lot of the old games. And the ones I do are usually single player, so I don't need a bunch of servers. I just need the game. So long as that's available to me, I'm not too worried about these servers that got shut down on games that I never played, that nobody is playing, that you know, there's it doesn't matter.
yeah.
And then there's private groups that will start their own servers up and keep some of these games alive. If they keep that popularity going, they keep it around.
Yeah, and I mean, like some of that stuff I can totally get because there are some really old games that people are still in love with, and I feel like for a lot of those old games, they get remastered, and yes, unfortunately, that does mean you would have to buy it again. But like, let's take for example, Metal Gear Solid. That genre has a huge following, but if you notice, every few years, like 5, 6 years, they remaster it for the current console. So yes, technically, yes, you could buy, say, Metal Gear Solid 3. Yes, you could have bought Metal Gear Solid 3, and I probably have like 3 or 4 times. But it's just because every once in a while I'll go back and play that game, and there's some stupid things you can do in that game, like hide in a box, and shoot people from inside a box. Just see this box, trotting down, like sniping people. But
Right?
but yeah, it's a fun game, and that passion keeps that game alive through generations. But I get the frustration that people could have, like say for example, like how the 360 how the 360 market is gone now. Yeah, you could have, for example, Ray, if you bought a game digitally for the Xbox 360 and you have it in your purchase history, so like you could go and look and see that you've bought it digitally, you can't download it because it just doesn't exist anymore. Like the server doesn't support it. So
Right.
even though you can see that you purchased it, you can't play it. You can't download it because there's nowhere to download it from. So, I get that frustration because there could be people that have bought like just a ton of games for the Xbox 360 and now they can't play it. But I mean, there is still support through Game Pass. Game Pass does have, a lot of games in their library, but as far as, purchased games, yeah, that's gone. So I get that frustration. But all this to say, um, for the Nintendo Switch, with their prices, one of the things that has been, contested a lot is, like you said, Ray, where the price normally for Mario Kart is like $80, $90, something like that. And if you get it with the Nintendo Switch 2 bundle, it's like a $50 difference. There have been a lot of people that have been, kind of harping on that, saying, "Oh well, Nintendo said that if you get it through the bundle, it's like only paying $50 as opposed to $80." And yes, if you get Mario Kart World, yeah, it's that $80, $90. Now the thing is, there have been a lot of people saying, "Oh my gosh, the Nintendo Switch 2 is driving up the price of games," and to a certain degree it is. But the weird thing about the Nintendo Switch 2 is, from what I can tell, they don't have a sense of uniformity when it comes to pricing for their games. So, for example, Mario Kart, that Mario Kart World game, yes, it can be like $80 or $90. The price will probably drop after a little while. But there's other games that are being listed for the Nintendo Switch 2 that still have that $59 price tag or a $69 price tag. But like it depends on the game. Like it's not
Yeah,
like
well,
how it
even
is.
Nintendo came out and said that. So depending on what we think the value of the fun in the game is, that's how we're going to price our games. We're not going to price it. We might see games that are $100 because they're just that big a game. It costs that much more to make it. I mean, look at the production value on some of these games. It's in the millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. It's crazy. It's like a Hollywood movie. So yeah, they got to recoup their money. It is a business.
Yeah, like for example, I just pulled up some right now, and there's a game called Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar, and that's $59, and that's going to be for the Nintendo Switch 2. There's Donkey Kong Bonanza, that's $69, and then of course Mario Kart is going to be $79, and
Yeah.
there's this other game, Daemon X Machina. It's the Titanic Scion limited edition now. That's the limited edition. That's $99. The regular base game is $79. But it just goes to show that the pricing's all over the place. 59,
Yeah.
69, 79,
And
99.
there's always been, ultimate editions and special editions that here you get an art book and you get an extra level and you get the game early and all these things that they do. Yeah, you're going to pay $130 for this game now because you got all the extras, but you don't have to.
It seems like from what I'm looking at for pre-ordering games for the Nintendo Switch 2, it seems like the base price for base level games, not like deluxe editions and stuff, some are at 59, some are at 69, a handful are at 79.
And most of those are going to be your biggest titles, your Zeldas, your Marios, your what else is a big title on Nintendo?
That Donkey Kong game is supposed to be a big title, and that's at the
Yeah.
69. So
Yeah, but Donkey Kong's big to our generation. These younger kids don't know Donkey Kong. We played that in an arcade, dude.
and there's another one. It's Bravely Default, and that's being remastered, and that one's only 39. So, I mean, yes, it is a remaster of an old game. There's for remasters of games, those can be as low as 39. For newer games, 59, 69. Some of them can be as high as 79. So there's no real rhyme or reason about the
Right.
cost of Nintendo Switch 2 games. They just are what they are, and I would say,
But the big scare is, are Xbox and PlayStation, Steam games, are these going to follow suit? And the next thing you know, all of these games that were just recently gone up to 70 are now going to go up to 80.
I think this is going to be a really big test for Nintendo, because for all of us that play video games, I say if you see games are $79 and you're against that, just don't get the game. If you get the Nintendo Switch 2, which I'll be full transparency, I am planning on getting the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, when it comes to these games, I'll probably get the more affordable games, the 59 and the 69. For Mario Kart being $79 and $89, I'll wait. There's always going to be
Or you'll get the
some
bundle.
holiday. I'll wait till it's $10 or $20 off. And by doing that, you're essentially voting with your wallet. You're telling Nintendo,
Right.
I'm not going to do that. And so that will make them course correct and make their games more affordable. When they see that nobody's paying $79 or $89, or very few people are paying $79 or $89 for these newer video games, they'll of course price drop it like $10, and then when they see people are picking it up at, say, $69, then that will be the new standard. And of course, all of this experimental stuff that's going on with Nintendo and their game pricing, of course Microsoft and Sony are watching that. And honestly, the best thing that we can hope for as gamers is that people don't actually buy games that are that expensive. If you see,
They will. It's Nintendo. It's like an Apple putting out a new phone. People go out and buy it, even if it's a ridiculous price, and they don't need a new phone. They'll go out and buy it because it's an Apple and they got to have the latest one. There's a lot of Nintendo followers that are the same way. Xbox and PlayStation need to realize you're not Nintendo. Nintendo's just an anomaly in the gaming industry that is not the same as the other two.
Well, still, they're not going to think that way. They're just going to be like, well, Nintendo did it, so we can do it too. But yeah, as long as people don't get suckered in to buying Nintendo games for those higher prices and they wait it out till they're reasonably priced, then Nintendo will get the message. And like I said, Sony and Microsoft are definitely going to be watching. So let's say Mario Kart for the Nintendo Switch 2, let's say it sells ridiculously and people are eating it up at $89 a game. Then yeah, Microsoft and Sony will be thinking about that. They'll be like, well, if they can sell Mario Kart at $89, and they'll be looking at their big titles. They'll be like, new Halo, we can make that 89, or the new God of War, we can make that 89. So
right.
Really, this is new territory for Nintendo, and it's scary territory for a consumer. So as long as we vote with our wallet and say that we're not going to be buying games at $80, then yeah, they'll have no choice but to mitigate their cost of the games that they're selling, so they're affordable. And yeah, Xbox and PlayStation will follow suit, and they'll be behind that.
Yeah, the only thing that might backfire in all of that is the quality of our games that we get produced. Then, because you have to figure what it costs for these people to produce these games is a lot higher than what it was. So you got to kind of expect everything else has gone up in price. I expect that's going to go up in price too.
I don't think that's necessarily.
But there's a limit to how far you can take it because people just don't have that disposable income.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. Like, oh, it costs more to make games, because really, it's a lot of coding and it's a lot of man hours. Sure, true, but I think at the end of the day, it's profit margins. People making millions instead of tens of millions, on the profits of the game. So I think a lot of it's just greed. But
I'm sure that's in there too. That's a factor.
Yeah.
But that's our show today. Thank you very much.
All right. Peace.